Hey everyone, welcome to My Wife the Dietitian, a weekly podcast about lifestyle and healthy eating. I'm Rob, and together with my wife Sandra, we invite you to join us on this informative yet entertaining journey through the complex world of healthy eating.
We'll cover everything but the kitchen sink. Each week we'll discuss topics ranging from how to protect yourself from developing cancer, spicy foods to rev up the libido, to caring for your palliative grandfather with Alzheimer's.
We'll also delve into more complex issues like, what the heck is oat milk? Why doesn't my butt fit into these jeans? And every guy's favorite question, will eating spinach really make it bigger? Join us each week as we strive to educate, enlighten, and entertain you.
So your 12-year-old daughter comes up and tells you that she has decided that she doesn't want to eat any more meat or dairy. She's been watching some horrifying documentaries revealing the dark side of industrial farming, chicken crowding, cow slaughters, and massive factory farming operations. Big sigh. You're proud of her for becoming informed and wanting a better future for animals. But you also think, what the heck are we going to make for supper? Isn't there some important nutrients that her growing body needs in this stage of her life? And what about those fun barbecue dinners and campfire hoagies in the summer? There's a feeling of loss, frustration, all muddled together with a realization that your baby is growing up and making her own decisions.
So Sandra, maybe we should elaborate for everyone what you mean, like what the issue is that we're going to be discussing today.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, as the intro talks about, your vegetarian preteen daughter comes up and decides that she's going to be vegetarian. And with kids, most kids go through phases where they decide that they, are separate from their parents and they're going to make their own decisions. And this is a big one because kids get to decide what and how much to eat. So it's a tricky, it could be a problem if you react like it's a problem, right. But it could be an opportunity too. So that let's talk about the fact that it could be an opportunity and an opportunity in many different ways for the whole family.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's a good way to look at it. I want to cover first though, what the issues are with diet restrictive choices.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, preteens, girls, they're probably coming into the phase of menstruation and with their periods. And so they have some blood loss every month. And so their iron needs are going to be increased. So becoming vegetarian at this phase, is a bit tricky because they actually have higher iron needs, and then they're cutting out these big iron-rich sources in their diet, the meat.
The meat is where you're getting iron, typically.
And that's the iron part of things. There's also the calcium and vitamin D. And, with building bone mass, basically osteoporosis is a pediatric disease, meaning
really,
yeah, with geriatric consequences.
What does that mean?
Well, peak bone mass is built during our first 3 decades. So kids and adolescents and young adults, it's a really important time to build the skeleton and to get enough calcium and vitamin D in your diet. And so if you're going to cut out dairy, you have to make smart, reasonable choices that include calcium-rich foods in a different way. So plant-based milk or, other dairy, other calcium-rich
milk
foods.
Milk alternatives, yeah. And then what other issues are we looking at? What other nutrients are we needing to replace if you've stopped eating meats or you've cut out dairy? Or
that's a good question. B12 is a big one. So B12 sources are typically animal based, so there are ways to get vitamin B12, but it becomes more of you have to really look at what you're eating and be mindful of the choices you're making if you're going to become vegetarian. So the reason why I said it's an opportunity is maybe this is the time when the whole family could maybe reevaluate the family eating habits and diet and think, you know what, maybe we could have more, meatless Mondays, or have like a few more vegetarian meals per week.
Yes, that's a great way to resolve that issue, because it does affect the whole family. I remember when my dad was when I was younger, I was a teenager, I guess, and my dad had heart surgery and we needed to change our whole diet at home for how he eats, which obviously affects how we all eat because we all share a meal together. So it changed everything for us. We stopped eating a lot of meat and started introducing things we'd never had before, like fish and different vegetables. And it definitely became an opportunity. It was fun and discovering these new dishes and whatnot. So definitely an opportunity for sure, if you look at it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it probably improved the health of the family for the long term too.
For sure.
Because now, if you didn't make those changes when you were a teenager, then you might have gone along the same way that you guys were eating before. And, maybe you'd have premature, cardiac issues.
Premature. That's not a good word to say to a guy.
Sorry.
There's nothing premature here.
Okay. We are going to talk on another podcast episode about sexy foods, or
sexy foods.
foods that can increase the libido and help in that aspect.
But that's not here.
But no, and we're not talking about ED either.
No,
right?
none of that.
No. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, it's a big important issue if your preteen comes up to you and asks that they want to change their diet, because it does have the ripple effects of affecting the whole family. Plus, you want to make sure that they're getting their nutrition, so that they do grow up strong and healthy and don't have problems in the future.
Yeah, and there's the opportunities for kids are pretty limited to begin with. If you think of what's offered on the kids menu in a restaurant, or the things that a lot of families are feeding their kids just to make the kids happy, they're not getting a great nutritional base out of those options to begin with. So.
Oh, I know. It's incredible, the kids menus at restaurants sometimes, hot dogs and chicken fingers and fish sticks and fries, and you think, wow, this is what we're feeding our kids, and this is okay to do. Like it, once in a while, fine. But if this is a regular, and if people take that as, oh, this is kids, it's on the kids menu. This is
the norm.
This is the norm. This is what we're going to buy and have at home and feed our kids because that's what they like. That's actually very dangerous down the line in terms of what nutrition they're getting.
Well, it really limits. It limits the opportunities for the kids to try different things and learn that they like them.
Yeah, that's a exactly good point. Totally. Because if there's no variety, then how are they going to know if they like it or don't like it? And
exactly.
Yeah. And actually this whole issue, the feeding relationship, is another episode. I really want to stick to the vegetarian preteen aspect of things because there's lots to cover with that. Okay.
Well, let's carry on then.
Yeah, absolutely. So when kids, they are requiring more iron-rich sources of food, you think, well, because if they're not going to have meat, for instance, or and we don't know, like sometimes kids will say, I want to be vegetarian, and it's not black and white. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be vegan. They're they could. A lot of vegetarians eat fish, shellfish, include eggs and milk,
And dairy. Yeah.
dairy. So it really, and it's good to not kind of pigeonhole them, because if you kind of or the rest of the family, your siblings or whatever, say, oh, well, you said you're vegetarian, you can't eat that. Well, that's just, making that
It reinforces in their mind that, oh, right, I can't eat that.
That's right. And then their options are much more limited. Their variety is limited, and their nutritional, it might affect them nutritionally.
That's true. So what are some options then, as far as, I don't want to say meal replacements, just replacing what you're not getting?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because that's, I think, what the challenge is with anyone in the families having a diet restriction. It's like, well, what do we eat then instead? We can't eat meat. Now what are we supposed to do?
Yeah, and I think historically, meals were kind of based around, okay, we're having meat and then the starch and the veggies, kind of as a side, afterthought.
They're an afterthought.
Yeah, exactly. So, but if you look at Canada's Food Guide, the new one from 2019, it's a plate. Basically the plate ratio, and so half the plate is vegetables. So you want to build your meal around vegetables, anyways. So this is a good opportunity for the family to all eat healthier, and let's build the meal around the vegetables, and then a quarter as a plant-based protein, or that's where the meat would be, or it could be chicken or fish, or if it's for the vegetarian, then beans or nuts and seeds. So a plant-based
trail mix.
Trail
mix for dinner again? Oh man.
You're funny. And then the other quarter of the plate that we didn't mention is the whole grain starch. So could be like wild rice or quinoa, or a whole, like a rye bread, or whatever, whole wheat pasta. So there's lots of options for the whole grain quarter part of the plate. What are you laughing about?
I'm just thinking of noodles, kids and noodles, and craft dinner. And when you said the what did you call it? The starchy bit?
Yes.
I just thought noodles.
Oh, okay. So. Well, and that's funny because, that's a good point. If you think of a spaghetti meal at a restaurant, you look at, the plate ratio, and it's probably 6 servings of noodles, 6 servings of the pasta, and then a little bit of some sort of vegetable, sauce, maybe in the sauce, and then there's some meat in there probably too. So the ratio is kind of off with that type of meal.
Totally. Yeah. I just think most, a lot of the kids I know, teenagers, and when I was a teenager, it was, we lived on pasta. It was just the staple in the diet.
Absolutely. Craft dinner, Mr. Noodles. And you know what? With any of those meals, you can actually make them healthier. So there's a way to, you have craft dinner and it's like, oh, well, I'm not going to just throw it away. You can actually make it and then maybe add some broccoli or add some peas into it, so that, and then tuna would be a good thing, or salmon. You can add that into the craft dinner and then you make it a meal.
Yeah, for sure. I used to do that too. And I actually heard a radio program where people were calling in saying how they ate their craft dinner, and there was some pretty interesting options there.
Oh yeah, like what? Any examples?
I can't remember. I'm pretty open-minded when it comes to eating, so nothing really fazed me, but I think some of the reactions the DJs were having were pretty funny, but I always liked mine was salsa. That was my go-to, which seems pretty normal, but
well, it's funny. It seems normal to you, but I mean that's the thing with food, food culture, and it's funny because we have these certain ideas about how food should be eaten, and right. When you mix it up, then it's like you having French toast with with ketchup or salsa, and people just go, "What? That's French toast. It should be syrup."
Yeah, I know, but you don't put syrup on your eggs, and so well, it's just toast with eggs on it.
That's
That's
good.
I put ketchup on that. So
That's right. That's
anyway,
right.
that's
Yeah.
me. But
Yeah. No, but that is really interesting because it kind of feeds into the culture of a family and family mealtime. Because kids,
what is that family mealtime? What does that mean?
yeah, well, good question, because it is like a bit of an endangered species. The dining room table is like kind of becoming obsolete.
It's the workbench.
Yeah, yeah, or
Right.
paper. You leave papers and books on there or whatever. It's just and and a lot of times in a lot of households, that's where you have the the Christmas dinner or Thanksgiving dinner.
The Christmas chicken. Is that what you're gonna say?
Oh, the Christmas dinner or the Thanksgiving dinner. It's like a special occasion thing. But you know what? We should really be having family meals like, a good proportion of the week, like eating together, because it really is important for kids' psychological development and physical health too, because you eat better when you have a meal together. You're going to probably eat more vegetables and whole grains, and you're going to, yeah, just
Well,
basically.
it's a prepared meal rather than a box of crackers.
That's right.
Right?
Because that's what happens, right?
Yeah.
Kids,
It's totally what happens.
Yeah, they go on their device and they go to separate parts in the house and they, get some popcorn going or, like you said, crackers and cheese or whatever. And that's not a meal. It's not.
Or when the meal's ready, they're full, so
the other
they
thing.
don't show
That's
up
right.
for the family dinner.
That's right. Yeah. So, but family meals are really key, and we'll come back to that in a bit. But yeah, it's let's take this issue as an opportunity, and you can go down a positive behavior path with this for the whole family. So changing the eating habits of the whole family, and maybe pick like each person in the family has a responsibility for making one meal a week, so that you're all becoming part of this transition, and that you're all contributing to the family dinner.
Yeah, and I think nowadays, like when I was growing up, there wasn't a lot of options outside of the realm of meat and potatoes kind of dinners. There wasn't vegetarian options other than eating vegetables. But I think nowadays there's sections in the grocery store that are dedicated to all these different meals that are non-meat or non-dairy, and so there's way more options available now for people.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you don't even have to get a prepared meal. You can cook from scratch and use a crock pot. You could just, make a bean dish, beans, lentils, legumes, black bean burrito.
Because they're full of protein.
Yeah.
Right.
Beans.
See, I didn't know that before I met you. I didn't know about the power of the bean, other than they make you gassy.
Well, not everybody. If you eat them more often, it actually helps. So, yeah. But it's interesting because there's way more, like you said, there's way more awareness around plant-based meals, and there's cookbooks. There's lots of information on the internet, recipes using different nuts and seeds and beans and lentils and legumes, and for some eating eggs for a meal. Like there's lots of different ways to make eggs, and fish and seafood like prawns or clam chowder. Like there's so many different opportunities for non-beef, or just a different option than having meat.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, they just don't realize there's that many options out there, and so when they think, "Oh my God, a vegetarian! How am I going to eat?" But once you do a little digging and
experimenting in the kitchen,
yeah, for sure, and just realizing how it's probably a little bit of a challenge at first, but once you're on it, it's easy.
Well, it's like anything you learn, a new skill. There's a learning curve, right? And you might, say, "Oh, okay, this recipe worked out," or "This recipe, everyone hated it. Well, you're not going to do that again." Mm-hmm. So it totally depends. But yeah, the other thing with dairy, like we're talking about meat, but dairy is kind of excluded, it's a big way to get calcium and vitamin D. And so failure to build growing bones during childhood and adolescent years basically kind of equates to fractures later in life.
Right. You were mentioning that before. It's how important it is to eat, grow your body strong when you're young.
I see it all the time. I work in long-term care, and people that, especially women, they're more prone to osteoporosis. But if they're lactose intolerant, or they don't drink any milk, and these are the people that typically have more frail skeleton and more like osteoporosis, and they are at risk for falling, fractures. It's really a bad thing when you're elderly to have weak bones.
Yeah, I can imagine. And it's not something that's likely easy to fix.
No,
at that age.
Well, it is. I mean, it's treatable. But like you said, I mean, if you can build a strong skeleton when you're young, like in the first 3 decades, that's where your peak bone mass is it's really important.
Just prevent it in the first place. It's
Exactly.
always, prevention is always better than treating it after the fact anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and I'm hoping that people, if they're deciding not to have dairy, that they are choosing those plant-based milk alternatives that have the calcium and vitamin D fortification, because then you are still getting your calcium.
Right.
But there's also other ways, like you can get calcium out of sesame seeds and out of almonds and broccoli, but the amount that you have to eat to compare to a cup of fortified plant-based milk or dairy is a lot. Like you'd have like 16 cups of broccoli.
Holy.
Yeah.
It's like beep, beep, beep. Here comes the broccoli truck again. All right, kids, get your wheelbarrows out.
Right. Oh, I know. That's about it. So, most people need about 3 servings of calcium-rich foods or fluid a day. So if you just cut out dairy, like, I'm not having yogurt anymore, I'm not having cheese, and I'm not having milk. Okay, well, let's figure out some alternatives here so that you don't end up having osteoporosis when you get older, because it will happen probably when you're in your 60s. And that's young, these days. Like you can have a strong skeleton up until you're 100 if you...
I'm going to be kicking butt when I'm in my 60s.
Yeah.
Because I'm married to a dietitian. So I'm learning these things.
And we are going to talk about, longevity and healthy eating into your older years in an episode. So I'm
right.
Look forward
and also
to that.
Sexy foods, you said.
Oh yeah, we're going to talk about that at one point too. And like the mind diet, so helping to prevent dementia. So.
And sexy foods.
Okay. Maybe we should do that one next.
Oh, we could do.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, what was I going to ask you? No, I can't remember.
Well, I think I remember we were discussing the food choices and like how restaurant menus and that kind of stuff. But if you think of like some kids, like teenagers in the high school, they're going to the cafeteria at lunch, and maybe they didn't eat breakfast before they went to school, and then there's lunchtime, and I'm vegetarian. They remind themselves, okay, what's the options? I can't have a burger, and I can't have a hot dog, and I can't have chicken strips. Fries. I'll get fries. Okay. Oh, and there's a Danish. I can have fries and a Danish. So there you go. That's so is that really healthier than the other options? So becoming vegetarian, in air quotes, isn't necessarily healthier if you're going to choose refined products that are non-meat, like so Danishes and donuts and rice cakes and rice crackers. And just because it's not coming from an animal doesn't mean it's healthier. So you really have to be cautious and choose the healthy veggies and fruits and whole grains.
Right. And the other thing too with meat and a lot of the proteins is they fill you up. So if you're not getting that, you're not feeling full, then what are you going to be snacking on in order to fill your belly?
I know. And the other thing is with schools, like you can't bring peanut butter or peanut products a lot of times because of the allergies.
Right.
And so that's a real good alternative for people that are, are becoming vegetarian. They use peanut butter a lot. And so that's a little bit of an issue. So I've seen all this in talking with parents in the past and just, what to do and how do I feed my child?
Right. I remember what I was going to ask you or just mention anyway, is that I think a lot of the issues these days, especially with teenagers, is the influence of social media and girls, especially with body image, trying to keep up or trying to reach a certain ideal, and perhaps a lot of their food choices or restrictions are coming from there.
Absolutely. Or they've seen their friends, so-and-so is becoming vegetarian or, maybe I can start restricting calories or whatever. And that might be a different episode, but it's definitely impacts, kids and adults, social media. So it is a phase of life for preteens. Their body is changing and they might start menstruating. So there's all these other issues. And the importance of family meals, because they have shown that kids that don't have the regular family meal gathering where they go around the table and eat a meal regularly, they are more likely to have poor grades. So in school, they are more likely to get into riskier behaviors as teenagers. So alcohol use, drug use, early teenage pregnancy, and suicide. Unfortunately, it's a dark world for kids that don't have that connection with an adult regularly. And so it's really important for kids to the family meal is the perfect opportunity to just, connect.
And it's just the way our world is these days, with both parents working and just so many more activities going on for kids. It's hard to have the time to sit down as a family on a regular basis, and maybe we don't realize the detriments, the detrimental effects rather that's having. So it's good to hear about that and hear sort of some of the issues it's causing, and maybe try to make that a focus.
Or a priority. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
While you're cooking your non-meat meal as a family, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
You won't be out stealing cars or getting pregnant in them or.
Right.
That's more fun to hang out with mom and dad.
Yes, for at least till they're 18 or, anyways. So this has been awesome. And I think we should wrap this up. And I just want to say, if this happens to you, then maybe take this as an opportunity to reevaluate your family's eating habits and maybe come together and get some ideas on some plant-based eating and some meals and, just try to get creative in the kitchen. And we're going to talk a little bit about that with our Sexy Foods podcast too. Can't wait. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Sandra, again for your expertise, and we will talk more next time.
Thanks, Rob.
So that went pretty well, I think.
Yeah.
Talked about everything we needed to talk about. I'm super hungry though. Do you want to, I think there's those burgers from last night.
And fries.
And fries, exactly. Can't forget the fries. Thanks for joining us today on My Wife the Dietitian. If you like what you heard, don't be shy. Leave us a comment or review, and be sure to share our podcast with your friends. If you'd like to hear more, hit that subscribe button. You can also follow us on our social media pages for updates, episode trailers, and other odds and ends. For more info and links on what we discussed on today's episode, check the show notes. We'll be back next week with another informative and fun-filled episode.